Hi, it's Sean. Welcome to my channel EV Intuition, where I'm helping you try to understand about electric vehicles. I'm trying to give you the good and the bad, the pro and the con. I believe electric vehicles are not for everyone today, but I do think they offer certain advantages that certain people would find useful. So I'm trying to educate you in giving you that information. And today I'm going to dig deeper into understanding what the EPA specs that come with every electric vehicle, what do they mean? Now, they're not perfect, but they do provide some useful information to help you in your decisions on what electric vehicles make sense for you. So let's get started. Before I begin, I want to remind you that if you like the content of my videos, please subscribe to my channel, give me a like, or send me any comments you have. Today I'm talking about EPA specs and how important they are, how useful they are, and giving you some more details about them. So let's take a look at what typically you find with an electric vehicle EPA specs. Basically, on the window sticker, there's a portion of it called Fuel Economy and Environment. And in that portion, it has several numbers. The first thing I want to talk about is the efficiency of the vehicle, which it gives. So I have highlighted that now in the picture that you do see right now. And what you're going to see is the main way that the EPA tells the efficiency of electric vehicles is in something they refer to as MPGe, or miles per gallon equivalent. We're all very familiar with miles per gallon in the gas world, so they tried to create something very similar, which I think they missed the mark a little bit. But anyway, that's what they use. And basically what it refers to is how many miles an electric vehicle will get in using 33.7 kilowatt hours of energy. And why that number? Because the EPA came up with this equivalent factor that said 1 gallon of gasoline is equivalent to 33.7 kilowatt hours of electrical energy. So they came up with MPGe is how many miles will that electric vehicle go on 33.7 kilowatt hours of energy. And that's where you get these numbers shown here, like the 93 and 122. But before I get into that, let's take a little step back. That number, that big number shown of 93 and 122 is actually combined city and highway. Just like in gas vehicles, the efficiency of an electric vehicle varies between the city driving and highway driving. But the biggest difference, and this is an important factor to know in EV ownership, is that electric vehicles do better in city driving as compared to highway driving, which is actually the opposite of what gas vehicles go. And so that's the important thing you must know. And they give you the city efficiency in MPGe and the highway value in MPGe, and then they give you an overall combined value in MPGe. So just keep that in mind. Now, let's take a look at MPGe of these two vehicles. Notice that the Tesla has a higher value for it. And the higher value is the better. Just like in the case of MPGe, a vehicle is much more efficient with a higher MPGe rating. And so this shows you how much more efficient the Tesla is than the Mach-E, Ford Mach-E that I owned. Now, the thing you have to always remember when you're looking at efficiency is make sure you're comparing vehicles of similar size. Because obviously, just like in the world of gas vehicles, a pickup truck or a truck is going to get lower efficiency than a lightweight sports car, a very small car, because it weighs less, takes less energy to move it. So that's the same thing in the electric vehicle world. But if you can get two vehicles that are similar in size and one has more efficiency than the other, obviously that is the better thing to have. And it's showing how much more efficient Tesla is. Now, the other thing that I want to talk about is, like I've mentioned, that MPGe isn't a very useful measure of efficiency in my mind. I prefer something referred to as miles per kilowatt hour because it is much more equivalent to the miles per gallon. The gallon of gas is that unit of energy in the gas car world. And in the electric vehicle world, the battery size is measured in number of kilowatt hours of energy that it stores. So I think a more useful measure of efficiency is miles per kilowatt hour. And so I show you how to convert MPGe into miles per kilowatt hour. And it's really just take the MPGe and divide it by 33.7. And I show you the calculations for both the Tesla that I owned and the Mach-E that I owned previously. So, and they come out to about 3.6 miles per kilowatt hour for the Tesla and 2.8 for the Ford Mach-E, just to give you an idea of what size to expect for miles per kilowatt hour. Now, the useful thing about that is that if you know the size of your battery, then you could calculate the range that could be expected to get. And I give you an example of that with my Tesla having a 75 kilowatt hour battery. At that particular efficiency, I'll get about 270 miles of range. So that's important to know, and that can be calculated. Now keep in mind the efficiency of an electric vehicle varies depending on temperature, meaning in colder temperatures, you're not going to get the MPGe listed on the sticker here because that's ideal conditions. But if you're driving in winter, you're going to get a lot less. So that if you knew your efficiency of your vehicle in miles per kilowatt hour, then you can get some idea of how long your vehicle will go before it needs a charge. Let's look at one other thing that the EPA shows on that sticker. And they actually give another value, and I'm showing you there highlighted on the screen, and they call it kilowatt hours per 100 miles. Now this is saying how much energy of that battery is being used with 100 miles of driving. Now in this case, the smaller the number, the more efficient, because you want it to consume less energy for every mile that you go. And you can see that the Ford is a value of 36 and the Tesla is a value of 28. So Tesla being more efficient as MPGe indicated. And so that's just another way that that sticker also gives you information about another way of measuring efficiency. And I show this value also in another way because certain vehicles like the Tesla will show you efficiency on the screen, and they show it to you in watt hours per mile. And I'm showing you an example of how to calculate watt hours per mile using the MPGe. And you just basically divide 33.7 by the MPGe and multiply it by 1,000. And I give you a couple examples here to show you what to expect in the case of the Tesla, which comes out to be about 276 watt hours per mile, and the Ford 362. The other thing I show is that you can then take that calculation and convert that into the number shown on the sticker, which is 28 kilowatt hours per 100 miles for the Tesla and 36 kilowatt hours per 100 miles for the Ford Mach-E. I just wanted to show you that those are different calculations of efficiency, and certain vehicles will show one way and others will show another. In the Ford Mach-E, it typically showed you current efficiency in miles per kilowatt hour, which I loved. In the Tesla, they give it in watt hours per mile. So you got to kind of do the calculations in your head if you want to convert it back. But those are things to get familiar with, because those are new calculations that you're not familiar with if you're familiar with the gas world. Now, one other thing I want to show you just to get you up to date is what's it look like if you had a plug-in hybrid, because a plug-in hybrid is both a gas vehicle and electric vehicle all in one. So I want to show you a typical sticker that you would see for the fuel economy and environment with a plug-in hybrid. And I'm showing you in this particular case a particular sticker of a plug-in hybrid, and then I'm highlighting the MPGe portion of it, and you can see the MPGe portion of this is showing 98 is the combined value. Notice they don't show you the city and highway because there's probably not enough real estate on that little sticker to show you everything, so they just give you the combined value in this case. But they also then do give you the particular number of kilowatt hours per 100 miles, and in this case they give you 34. So they give you those two different measures of efficiency on even a plug-in hybrid, the electrical portion of that vehicle, because as you know, in the gas portion of it, it's all miles per gallon. Now I want to give you a couple of real-world examples from my Tesla of me driving recently about the difference between the city and the highway efficiency, just to make sure that that's clear in your mind. First, I want to show you a screenshot of my Tesla after going on a road trip. And remember, road trip, I'm going on mostly highway miles. And so you'll notice that when I did that particular road trip, my efficiency measured on the Tesla in watt hours per mile was 260. And so that was it on a road trip, mostly highway mileage. And then there was a period of time for a few weeks I was just driving around the city and not going on the highway. And I took a screenshot of that particular range of use, and you can see that my efficiency at that time, over that period of time, was 213 watt hours per 100 miles, 213 watt hours per mile. And so you can tell the lower the number, meaning the more efficient. And just as I expressed earlier, city driving, electric vehicles do better or are more efficient than on highway. And if you do some calculations on that, taking those numbers, which I show now on the screen here, if I had 213 watt hours per mile of city driving, that equates to 4.7 miles per kilowatt hour, or a range of about 352 miles. And then if you look at highway driving, you get 3.8 miles per kilowatt hour based on 260 watt hours per mile, which equates to a range of 288 miles. Now, the last number that I want to point out on that fuel economy and environmental sticker is something referred to as range. You will not find a range on the gas vehicles, or I've never seen that on gas vehicles, but the EPA puts it on electric vehicles since electric vehicles started out with very low ranges, and that was very important to know how far it would go. So it's there now for all electric vehicles, and that range continues to increase, but it's also a factor that you've got to keep in mind when looking at electric vehicles and the differences between electric vehicles. So I'm showing you now the sticker of the two vehicles that I own, and you can see the different ranges of those two vehicles. Now, the Ford Mach-E that I had was the standard battery, and it would only go 211 miles per the EPA test, and the Tesla was listed at 330 miles of range. And you can say, whoa, that's a huge difference. And it is. But here's another thing you got to keep in mind. This is where the EPA has gotten to tighten up things. Remember, electric vehicle manufacturers run their own EPA tests, and they have a choice of which tests to run. And so different companies do different things. And that results in maybe the numbers not being close to reality. And that's especially in the case of the Tesla, which was listed at 330 miles. Now remember, that range is considered a combined range. And I gave you an example just recently on my Tesla of city driving, where I got a range of maybe 352 miles for city driving and 288 for highway driving. So you got to keep that in mind, that's a big difference. And actually, I think range is one value that should only be calculated for highway driving. I don't really care about the range in the city, because my vehicle has enough range that when I'm driving city-wise, I'm not going to run out of energy doing city driving on a daily basis. But when I'm on a road trip doing many miles on the highway, yes, that's important. But anyway, that's one of my pet peeves with the range number that they give. And like I said, they also gave manufacturers too much leeway on that. And so to give you an example, the Tesla showed a range of 330. Now, reality is when I'm doing just 100% highway mileage, as you can see from the other figure I showed, I'm only going to get maybe 280 so miles at most, So keep that in mind. That's a big difference between 280 and 330. Now, an interesting thing with the Ford Mach-E is it listed a range of 211. Now, I was able to get about a range of about 200, roughly about 200 miles max with my Ford Mach-E. That was only like 11 miles difference, so much closer to the EPA value than the Tesla was. So if you were expecting to get 330 with the Tesla, you're going to be, pretty disappointed going on a highway and expecting to get 330 on a Model Y when it's not going to get anywhere near that. That's an important thing to know about these numbers. And I think the EPA can do a better job in helping to inform customers. Now, I also want to show you the range indication on a plug-in hybrid sticker. Notice it gives you the range for both the electric portion and the gas portion. And in the particular one that I'm showing, it's showing a range of 30 miles, because that's as far as it's going to go with a plug-in hybrid if you went totally electric. Now, of course, after 30 miles, it switches over to gas, and you don't have to worry about that. But at least it gives you the particular range that the electric battery and motor portion of that vehicle will give you. The last thing I want to say about range of electric vehicles is do some research on it when you're looking at vehicles. I'm now showing a chart from an article by Car and Driver that did some testing of vehicles and compared their EPA range to the actual range that they found doing a 75-mile-an-hour test of those vehicles. And it shows the difference between the particular car manufacturers and the actual range. So I think this is kind of useful, at least to show you the disparity between the two, and also to raise awareness for you to make sure you do your research. Well, I hope you found this information useful and informative. Thanks for watching. I'll hope to see you next time. Take care.